in the harsh winter environs of the Oregon coast.
You know, these are waves that could reach heights as high as 40 to 50 feet. Oregon has one of the best wave climates for wave energy conversion anywhere in the world, and that's why we're here.
Here is Oregon Iron Works, and Phil Pellegrino is getting a tour as workers fabricate the next generation of OPT buoys.
35 feet in diameter and about 16 feet high.
The PB-150 will be larger and more powerful than its counterpart in Hawaii. Once in the water, the buoy will generate up to 150 kilowatts of power. It works by using a float that rises and falls with each passing wave. That forces a drive rod up and down, which causes its power takeoff system to turn a generator inside the buoy. The electricity produced is then sent to shore through a subsea cable. To be cost-effective, several buoys need to be clustered together at a site along the coast.
We would like to see the Oregon coast develop hundreds of megawatts of wave farms. It has the potential to do exactly that.
On the docks along Oregon coast, not everyone shares Pellegrino's enthusiasm. Nick Furman heads Oregon's Dungeness Crab Commission. At roughly $80 million, it's the state's most valuable fishing industry. Furman also represents a collective of fishermen. He's working with elected leaders and the wave energy developers to come up with a way for both industries to coexist.
We've kind of accepted the fact that even though it is prime habitat for Dungeness crab, even though it is an important and significant area, we're going to have to put those 10 buoys in the water. Our biggest fear is that if it were to be successful, instead of seeing fishing boats operating up and down the coast, all we saw was buoys bobbing up and down. And I think that's going to be the challenge.
The local communities are going to have a lot of power to stop these projects.
Dr. Robert Pash runs the Northwest National Marine Renewable Energy Center.
Wave energy right now we're estimating is around 50 cents a kilowatt hour. But what we expect to see is a curve much like we saw in wind. 30 years ago, wind energy cost about 50 cents a kilowatt hour. And it's now down in the 7 to 5 cents a kilowatt hour range to where it's competitive with a lot of carbon-based sources.
At Oregon State University's Hinsdale Wave Research Laboratory, another wave energy company, Columbia Power Technologies, is testing a 1/15th scale model of their wave buoy. Ken Reinfrank believes CPT's design will be a game changer.
It'll look awesome. It'll be 60 feet in diameter, 75 feet tall, and weigh over 1,000 tons. The profile at the surface is very low, and you actually won't see it a mile offshore.
For Dr. Pash, helping developers make advancements in wave energy is a chance to atone for a mistake he believes the United States made when it turned away from wind energy.
The U.S. led the world in wind energy in the 1970s. And then for political reasons, the federal government sort of withdrew support from that industry. In Europe, there were some countries that didn't let up. And I think the Danish are a good example of that. You know, the Danish companies have a huge part of the market share in terms of wind energy machines across the world.
Even the most optimistic experts agree, wave energy will probably account for about 15% of the world's renewable energy portfolio. Still, OPT's Dunleavy insists that will make it a multi-billion-dollar industry.
We believe that in the next 2 to 3 years, we can attain production volumes that will help us to compete with other forms of renewable energy, but also begin on the curve of being able to become competitive with fossil fuel-based energy.
While the world searches for alternatives to fossil fuels, wind and solar may appear more viable, but there are many who believe the next wave will be just that.
Now, Beijing is another city that is big on bikes. In fact, electric bikes are quickly becoming the most popular mode of transportation there, but electric doesn't necessarily mean eco-friendly. Emily Chang joins us now live from Beijing. Emily.
Christy, we're out here on Beijing streets nearing the end of the evening rush hour. Chinese people seem to be involved in what looks like an accidental transportation revolution. Just a decade ago, there were just a few thousand e-bikes in China. Now, there are more than 100 million.
In the urban jungle of Beijing, pedestrians, drivers, and riders are still learning how to coexist. Just 20 years ago, China was the land of bicycles, with barely a car in sight. Today, the roads are tangled with 25 million cars and 120 million electric bikes.
All right, they say this one is good for me. It's small, it's safe, it doesn't go too fast, so let's see how it rides. Here I am, braving Beijing traffic, and so far so good.
In fact, e-bikes are China's fastest growing mode of transportation, with speeds ranging from 20 to 50 kilometers per hour at a fair price. It's really convenient and saves money too, this customer says. He just bought his first e-bike for $295. The trend is catching on with commuters, young and old. At 75, Mr. Zuo is too old to legally get a driver's license in China, but he doesn't need one to ride an e-bike. E-bikes are good for my bad knees, he says. My policy is to go slow. At factories, e-bike production is booming. Chinese company Yadi produced just 50,000 e-bikes in 2005 when the company opened, compared to more than 1 million last year.
This is the last step on the production line, where the shells are added, the screws are tightened, and there's one final inspection before these electric bikes are rolled off for safe.
Everyone's talking about a low-carbon economy these days, the manager says, and e-bikes use less energy. Just how environmentally friendly they are is debatable. They do consume electricity generated by coal-fired plants. They also use lead batteries that can damage the environment if they're not disposed of properly. And safety can be problematic too. Riders here rarely wear helmets, and many inexperienced users weave in and out of traffic. Accidents are common, traffic fatalities rising, and some car owners are getting frustrated. They're not safe, this driver says. They just go too fast. But like it or not, they're only becoming more popular.
All right, not bad. Rides very quietly. It's pretty easy to control, and at least in China, it is definitely the way of the future.
As you can probably tell, I was not particularly good on an e-bike. I have a lot more work to do if I want to improve my riding skills. If you want to read more about my, at times, terrifying experience riding around Beijing streets, I blogged about it. Just log on to our website, CNN.com. Christy?
Welcome back from Hong Kong and London. This is World Business Today.
So we were talking before the break. Thailand has set its sights on the lucrative wine industry. And while it may not be the first place you think of when you envision wines to tempt your palate, some wine experts say rethink that. Dan Rivers has more.
No, this isn't Tuscany or Provence, it's Thailand, complete with a faux castle and a distinctly southern European climate. But it's what grows in Khao Yai that's putting this valley northeast of Bangkok on the radar of wine lovers with an open mind. This is a so-called New Latitude vineyard, part of a revolution that's challenging the orthodoxy of where it's possible to grow grapes. But I wanted to know if Thai wine can hold its own against other labels from around the world.
This is wine C.
We asked 3 wine experts to conduct a blind tasting, one of the best Thai wines against similarly priced rivals from Australia, South Africa, Argentina, and even France. We all assumed the Thai wine would get blown off the table. But those who've invested so much time and money refining Thai wine insist with every vintage it is improving.
We promote Thai wine, introducing people to drink Thai wine, and once they have a taste of Thai wine, then they see that we are very serious about it.
So how did the Thai Shiraz perform in the blind tasting?
It's quite unique.
The experts were surprised the Thai Shiraz held its own against all the others.
I'll be darned.
All the wines got 82 to 85% approval.
These wineries are turning out wines that are absolutely competitive on an international scale.
A vineyard in the tropics may sound like a crazy idea, but up here in the hills of Khao Yai, the weather is much cooler than elsewhere in Thailand. After several years of experimentation, the wineries here are starting to produce some really quaffable wines. Perhaps the biggest obstacle to their success is the prejudice of some consumers who consider Thai wine a bit of a joke.
I imagined, I made a joke to somebody coming out on the bus that it was going to be like Virginia wine, because once in Virginia I drank local wine and it was revolting, and I imagined that we were going to be having something similar.
That's right, but you're pleasantly surprised.
I was very pleasantly surprised.
Who knows, maybe in a few years it won't just be spicy Thai food that will be famous around the world, its wines may also be taken seriously. Dan Rivers, CNN, Khao Yai, Thailand.